As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner, YouGov, offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. Enthusiast Gaming and their latest second quarter results. Now, I couldn't find the exact link you had shared, the little headline you had shared, but at first glance, these results seem strong.
So what was the issue you had? Well, the headline was what the issue was. So we got to find the headline. I'll find the headline. It was from the Esports Observer, and the headline was Esports Enthusiast Gaming reports $10 million net loss, little revenue contribution from esports assets. Okay. And it was just like, I don't know, it was a very off-putting headline to me where, they're quoting a GAAP, net income number that pretty much nobody looks at. Everyone's looking at adjusted numbers and sort of EBITDA. And Enthusiast is also a company that's pretty early in their life cycle. They're investing. So like very few investors are looking at this company on a net, certainly not on an EPS net income basis. And they put up a really strong quarter. I mean, they beat all analyst estimates. They had a very strong quarter on direct advertising sales coming in. I think it was their best quarter they've ever had. And they sort of throw in this jab of very little contribution from their esports assets, which is like, okay, I'm not entirely sure like what value that brings to the article. Besides, it felt to me like it was a little bit of like a, hey, we're the Esports Observer and we're sort of like the gatekeepers for what is esports and it kind of goes back to what we talked about, when people had a lot of comments when we did that list of the top 10.
Yeah, I was just going to say
esports companies or esports, whatever properties. And people were like, well, Enthusiast isn't an esports company. They're a gaming company. And I just felt a little bit of that in this headline where it was like them trying to gatekeep, like, oh, well, they're not even really an esports company. Only 4% of their revenue came from their quote unquote esports assets. And it's just like, I don't know. I didn't love the tone because I really like the Enthusiast guys. And I think they had a great quarter. Disclosure, I am a shareholder of Enthusiast Gaming. But I didn't love I didn't think the headline was warranted with the quarter that they had, which I thought, and I talked to a couple of investor friends of mine today that all agreed that it was a good quarter. And I think Adrian and the team over there are executing really well. So,
yeah, it's one of these things where, first of all, first learning, if you're going to the Esports Observer or Esports Insider for like business insight on the industry, you're doing it wrong. You're just doing it wrong. It's not the place to go. But having said that, it's one of these things where it comes down to this strict definition of esports, right? And I think a lot of people like to hold on to this strict definition of esports being, people watching on a stage and an audience in a stadium. And I just think it only continues to hurt the industry because you get headlines like that, right? Which are just categorically wrong. This is a gaming company that is executing well. Whether we call it gaming or esports doesn't matter at all, right? They mean the same thing. And frankly, even Luminosity, even their gaming, if they're pure esports division, still the most watched team on Twitter, right? Yes, it's because of XQC, but even they're killing it just from a, data perspective. To me, it has to end sort of this separation between gaming and esports. It's totally artificial, and I think it doesn't make sense. It never has.
And even just if they said their esports assets were 4% of revenue, they did 40 million in revenue. 4 or 5% of that is what, $2 million? Like a $2 million quarter for an esports team. That's pretty good, actually. Like shockingly, you know what I mean? Like that's almost a $10 million run rate.
I'm intrigued too if there were other people either in the company or like that communicated that to Esports Observer that like, hey, this is a really bad headline, because I'm looking for it too and I don't find it anywhere. And I'm not like, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled it because someone was like, this is really misleading.
Could be,
you know, like maybe.
It's also just odd when someone sorry, I'm like ranting now. It's like, these are supposed to be industry press sort of. They're supposed to be like industry press, sort of like they should be supporting companies that are doing well, public companies in the industry. And it's like to have the headline be about their losses when it's like, it's just a weird way to describe a company.
100%, yeah.
It's like there's plenty of companies out there that are public that are losing money that like the headline isn't typically like, hey, like Coinbase reported today like a $3 billion loss. Like, suck it, Coinbase, like you got juiced. It's like, no, you report the positive typically. I don't know. It's just, it was inflammatory in it for no reason.